Morning, everybody. Welcome to Just Talking 24, page 20. Today, we're going to go back. Um, I'm going back to 1963. The September 63 to June 64 was my third grade year. And you know how each of us have pivotal years in our lives? Well, that was my one of my pivotal years. And I think the reason for it was because of my teacher. Her name was Dorothy DuPont. And Mrs. DuPont, she was a Portuguese lady, but very smart, very smart. And I learned many things from her. Okay, many things. And I was wondering why, during nap. Well, it's not nap time. You rest time after after lunch. But we put our heads down. But she would give me these little tests to take, and I don't know why I wanted. I was so lucky to get the test. But see, back then the elementary schools were divided into uh, different intellectual accomplishment areas. Like you had the A class, the B class, the C class, the D class, and then the well, we call sped. Well, we call it sped today. The F, we call it F class back then. But it wasn't really a. It would they just put you where intellectually you could function because each of those classes were taught to a certain different level, and it's been shown in how many studies when they tell the teacher, okay, this is an A class, they teach a certain level. And because those people, well, we used to take scat and step tests, scholastic tests, and it was from these scores that they would get the the placement, and you would be placed according to what intellectually you could handle. I mean, that's just the way it is. We're all different, right? And I was in the A class, okay, and she would give me these exercises to do. If you're not tired, if I'm not tired, I could go up to her desk and get an exercise. And I didn't know what it was, and I learned things from her, like when you get two numbers to multiply. Okay, this is third grade now. We're not doing multiplications, but if you get, like, say 24 times 24, and then normally what you would do is you take the 4, and then you go 16 and then 4 96, right? And then next line you put a 0, and then you go 8, and then you'd go 4. So you have 480 plus 96, okay, which comes out to 576. Well, what she taught me was you go 4 times 4 and you put a 6, carry the 1. 4 times 2 is 8, and then you go the other way. 2 times 4, that's 8. 8 and 8 is 16, plus that 1, 17. So you put a 7, carry the 1. 2 times 2 is 4, plus the 1 is 5, 576. So you're doing that multiplication on just one line. Quick, really fast. But it screwed me up when I went to the fourth grade because I had to show my work and I didn't have any work to show. And I had to tell my teacher, her name was Mrs. Silva, that this is the way I was taught. Mrs. DuPont taught me. And she talked to Mrs. DuPont, and then I was allowed to use that type of math. You know, yeah, Mrs. DuPont just forgot to tell the other teachers, "Oh, I'm teaching this kid on a different way." But another thing she taught me, and I thought at the time it was so stupid, learning the alphabet. Yeah, A, B, C, D, right? We learned that back in first grade. Well, I had to learn it forward and backwards from different places. Like, start at, go forward, start at H, go to Z. So H I J K L M N O P, right? Okay, now go from P, go back to A, you know. So you go P, Q, wait, P, N, P, O, N, M, L, K, J, I, H, G, F, E, D, C, B, A, you know, like that. And well, I don't practice it very much, so but it does come in handy. It came in handy one time when I was in Nevada, and I got stopped driving because, of course, the hardest thing I had about Nevada in the beginning when because I always used to rent a car there. That was habit from the guys that I went up with. That's what they always did. They rented their own cars. But in Hawaii, down, I think downtown, because see, in Hawaii, we don't use north, south, east, and west. We use Eva, which is west, and we use Kokohead, which is east. And this is in Honolulu, okay? You have Eva, Kokohead, Mauka, which is the mountain, and Makai, which is the ocean. Those are the those are directional indicators. So when you go to the mainland and then you hear north, south, east, west, okay, and so then you hear downtown. So you think downtown. So here's the strip, and downtown is south, right? Yeah. Well, in Vegas, it's the other way. And so the joke was, we put 800 miles into the rental car, and 700 of them were lost miles. 'Cause, okay, go north. Okay, I'm going north. Go north. I am going north. No, you're not going. You're going toward the strip. Yeah, that's north, right? No, it's south. So everything is backwards. And so usually I'm lost. So I got stopped, and they thought I was DUI. So I got out of the car, and they asked me to get out of the car. I got out of the car, you know, and they ask you questions, and he told me to recite the alphabet, and I told him forward or backwards, and he goes, "What?" I said, "Forward or backwards," and he goes, "Okay, go backwards." I go, "For what letter?" He goes, "What?" I go, "Where do you want me to start? Where do you want me to end?" He goes, "Go from Z, you know." So he said, "We'll go from A to Z." I said, "Okay, A Z." I said, "Remember, I'm going backwards." I remember that, and he got pissed because that's what he asked for. He said, "Okay, go from Z to A," and I went Z to A, and then and that's when, once you get your mind into that, it becomes second nature. Because I had done it so many times in the third grade. She made me learn it, and so he said, "I can't do that." So I said, "How can you check if I'm right?" And he says, "Yeah, really." I said, "Well, sobriety tests, I am really against sobriety tests because all sobriety tests give you is probable cause. And it only tests your balance. It doesn't test your cognitive. It doesn't test your reactive. It doesn't test any mental eye-hand coordination, nothing, except for the stigmatism. And a lot of them, they do it too fast. No, it's supposed to be that fast. That fast. But they don't. They go. And I tell them, slow down, and really watch my eyes. And he's looking at me. A person doesn't say that unless the person knows, right? Yeah. And so Mrs. Dupont taught me that. Say the alphabet forward and backwards. And then she also the reason why she was giving me those tests. One day she asked for a parent teacher conference, and it wasn't parent teacher conference time. And I had to take the note home to my parents. Yep. Dun, 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 dun. You see the dungeon, right? The dungeon doors are closing. And my mom asked, "What's this about?" And I said, "She wouldn't say. She just wants you folks at your own convenience to come down to the school." Because what they would have to do is they'd have to take off of work early and go meet her after school. School ended at 2:30, and she usually sent it for 2:45. So there's no way my parents, they're going to miss. And my parents love to work. They were very conscientious workers. They instilled it in me. You work for that company. You give the company 100%. And so, for them to take off, I mean, they were supervisors, they were management, so it's really no problem. It's just the fact that they have to meet with Cam's teacher. And so I thought, and what did you do? And I said, I don't know. I didn't do anything, really. And my dad, like I said, my dad was a man of few words, so he didn't tell me. It was my mom. And, the pressure is really building up. So finally, when she met with Mrs. DuPont, she said, sit down. And we all sat down. And then those exercises that she's been giving me have really been tests. And they were tests of the fifth grade level. Yeah, fifth grade teaching level. And she goes, that I've passed those tests without any instruction. I knew the material. It was like reading comprehension, math, science, really simple stuff. Well, to me, it was simple. And uh, she said that she recommended really highly that I be, transferred up to the fifth grade. So my parents, they were very, of course, they were very flattered. And then stopped off. We went for ice cream. Went stopped at the store, and they bought me a cup of ice cream. Went home. We sat down, that's the one thing. That's the beauty about my parents. They talked, and my mom did most of the talking because my mom was the orator of the family. But my dad was right there, and they said, "Well, let us go talk about it, and then we'll talk about this on this weekend." I said, "Okay," and I didn't think anything of it because I was not going to get any lickings. I didn't get lickings a lot, but the thing was, I wasn't going to get any. I didn't screw up. But Miss Dupont, well, I ended up not doing it because I didn't want to leave my friends, and I was stupid. Okay, I told you, third grade. How bright can you be? I was not the sharpest tack in a box, but at least I was in a box, like I told you. But anyway, another thing that happened in 1963, November 22nd, um, John F. Kennedy was shot. Yeah, and she took it. I remember her crying, and several girls in my class were crying. I couldn't. It didn't fully. I didn't fully appreciate the weight of what happened until later on. I mean, I knew the president was dead, but we're in Hawaii. We're so isolated that, like, if the governor was killed, that's more important than the president because we really don't see him very often, and his impact we're not is not directly felt by us. But it was a very tumultuous time, tumultuous to say the least. And the country went through a time of grief. And then in early December 1963, like the song from the Beach Boys, right? And the Beach Boys, the Four Seasons. Late December back in 63. Well, this is early in December back in 63. See, in elementary school, every morning you stand up, the loudspeakers from the office, and the whole school could hear the office. They made it that loud. I mean, these are huge speakers, big speaker boxes, and they'd play Reveille, and they'd raise the flag. Then after the flag is raised, you have a leader from the class, and each person had his own day. You just go down the line, and they lead the class in the Pledge of Allegiance, and they lead a class in a song, a patriotic song. Um, God bless America, My Country 'Tis of Thee, America the Beautiful, Battle Hymn of the Republic, all those songs. And because of that, I guess Mrs. DuPont wanted us to really learn the Pledge of Allegiance. And it's very simple. You know it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Very simple. Takes you less than a minute to say. But she made us learn line by line what it meant. And to this day, to me, it's way more important than at any other time in my life. And so I want to go over it with you. I wanted to show you what it is, really, what it means. And it's I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. It's the first line. What does that really mean? A pledging allegiance. Allegiance is your loyalty, your undying loyalty. You pledge it. You vow it. And in those days, a man's word was his bond. In fact, that's how I am today. If I give you a handshake and I tell you I'm going to do something, I will do it. My bond, my word is my bond, and that's what I was taught. If a man doesn't have his word, the man is nothing. That's how I'm old school. Okay, that's old school. That's just the way I am. Um, Today, everything is even with contracts. You know, I never said that. No, I didn't. Well, I didn't mean that. What was the intent of that clause? I used to be in negotiation with the union, and yeah, what was the intent of it? It says, you won't smoke on, you won't smoke on premises. Well, what was the intent of that? And I look at them as like, are you stupid? I mean, that's a forest moment. But yeah, people, their words don't mean anything anymore. Yeah, it doesn't. Even action, even if you have a contract, look at prenups. A lot of these couples, they have prenups, and the guy, one of them makes it. One of the couple makes a lot of money. Okay, they want to split up. But the prenup. What did they mean by that? And it's just words. It means nothing. But and that's the a lot of the turmoil I get because when I give a word, when I say something, I mean it. Um, and so when you pledge your allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, that flag is the representative of the United States of America. That flag is your country, and you are pledging your total allegiance to it. Now, not total submission. Don't listen to the words, what they say now. People think allegiance and submission are two different things. No, you just vowing your loyalty to that flag. But whatever, rights that are afforded to you, whatever avenues of regression, protest, whatever it is, you are welcome to it. But in return, it's a balance. Remember, everything about me is balance. And the balance is it's a return. You get a return. And so you pledge the allegiance to that flag and to the republic for which it stands. So you're doing it to the flag and to the republic. The republic, the United States is a republic. We're not a democracy. Okay? Get that through your head. We're not a democracy. We are a republic. What's the difference? Okay, big difference. Democracy comes from the Greek word demos or demos, which means the masses. Okay? A republic is a representative form of government. In other words, we choose a delegate to represent us in Congress, right? Or in legislature, but let's stick federal. Everybody does it. Okay? Each state, according to its population, gets afforded so many representatives, but each state has two senators, regardless of if it's Hawaii with only four people in there, or New York, with 10 people there. It doesn't matter. Every state has an equal say. That's two senators. It may have a lot of representatives, okay, and that's because two, even the two senators, they're supposed to know they're supposed to be in touch with the state, okay, and we the people, when you vote for somebody, you cast that vote, you trust that person to vote with your interests. Now, it may not be the best interest, but it's your interest, and you hope that your interest is the best interest for the state. You think of others first. You think of the state. You are a part of the state. You are just one. But no, it's the other way around nowadays. It's what's in it for me. But yeah, we that's a republic. A republic is a representative type of government, which is what we have. And our government is broken down into three branches: executive, judicial, and legislative. Really simple. But people want it to be more complicated. And the more complicated you make it, the more you can get away with. That's one thing. You mire simplicity in complexity. Remember I told you about everything is balance, folks. Everything is balance. And so we are at the republic for which it stands, and that it's the flag stands for that republic. And that republic is one nation. We are 50 states, but we are one nation. And I believe in 1954 they put in under God. They just wanted God in there. Now that's not unconstitutional. You see, the Constitution says that the government will not hold a religion. It says nothing about God. Our forefathers couldn't even conceive the idea that God didn't exist and that people would not acknowledge God. I mean, it was a given. It's like every breath you take, that was God. But I guess we showed it back in the 40s and 50s, late 40s, that people were starting to turn away from God. So they put it in one nation under God, with liberty and justice for all. And that's what that nation stands for. It's a nation that's supposed to be God fearing, believe in liberty and justice. But liberty and justice, although they are our rights, we have to take the responsibility for executing our rights. You see, just because you have rights, that don't mean you can do whatever you want. You have to take the responsibility. And at the time it was drafted, the founding fathers and the I would say the majority of our population were responsible. We were a new nation. We had just gotten over a fight. We were mending fences because, I mean, not everybody was for the U.S. during the Revolutionary War. You had the sympathizers for Britain, and we had to learn how to meld together to become you know a nation, a complete nation. A lot of compromising was done. Lot of you know a lot of fence mending. I guess you'd call that fence mending. Um, Unfortunately, it didn't last. We had civil war. Civil war was like 100 years later. Okay, we're gonna fight again, brother versus brother. But that this the Pledge of Allegiance. I don't know when it started. I I'm just thinking now when it started. In fact, next week I'll get back to you on that. Okay, let me go research the um, Pledge of Allegiance, when it was drafted, when it was adopted, when it was by the United States. But I know that under God went in there in 1954, I believe. But yeah, so Miss DuPont taught us the Pledge of Allegiance. And they don't say it anymore. I don't hear it said anymore. They don't even start the day off in the schools with it. That's so sad. It really is. But the reason why I went back to there was because of what's happening with this one reporter as President Trump this past week. Are you guys still in talks with China, or is that just fake news? And Trump said, yeah, we're still in talks with China. Well, I heard from a Chinese, from China that they're not in talks with you. Well, who'd you hear it from? Well, I can't say. You know, who's full of shit? I'm sorry for the language, but there's no other way to say it. Who's full of crap? The President of the United States or that reporter? Who would you believe? That's right. The reporter. He's full of crap. I heard. You can hear a lot of things. Just flush the toilet. You'll see a lot of things too. But they don't understand. They want transparency. But they don't understand transparency because they keep asking questions about the transparency. It's right there. It's transparent. Look at it and go. Do not ask questions because you slow down the process. That's why they can't make it transparent because you're too stupid to understand. And I use that word, too stupid. That's a forest moment. And a lot of these reporters, you look at Caroline Levitt's briefings. They're stupid. They really are. Either that, or they just want to hear their voices broadcast nationwide. I don't know what it is, but it's like, how idiotic are you? She just told you the answer, and then you're asking for it in another way. I told you about this last week. It's still happening, folks. It ain't gonna change. You know, that's a forest moment. Stupid is as stupid does, and these people are stupid. Okay, there goes my blood pressure. Yep. But anyway, yeah, Miss DuPont, Miss Mrs. DuPont. Sorry, but we used to call her Miss DuPont. But Mrs. DuPont taught me a lot of things. Um, and I love that woman. She was really neat, very stern. She was Portuguese, right? So, but I was used to her because she reminded me of my grandmother. My grandmother was just like her. And in those days, you did not talk back to your teachers. Oh, we had corporal punishment in elementary school. I had Mrs. Tanaka with a rubber hose. Worse yet, the vice principal of my elementary school lived right across the street from me, so double the whammy if you don't act, if you don't fall in line and just follow the rules. And really, the rules made us better people. They did. It was, I feel, it was a better time. But anyway, that's it for today. Really fast. So if you got a chance, put your hand over your heart. Okay, your right hand over your left chest, your left pectoral, and say the Pledge of Allegiance and really understand it and say it. And I think it'll make you a better American, make you a better person, and it might help bring back memories and give you the will to go on. It does. I mean, I love this country. You know that I love America. And with that, I'm going to say ahui ho, maalama and of course, always aloha. Goodbye. Have a great week. Like and subscribe. Tell your friends. Please give me a break. Get me going. But anyway, thank you and bye bye.